Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Just to You podcast. My name is Eric Nicole, and I'm your host. If you are a first time listener, welcome to the conversation. And if you're a regular, I'm honored that you've decided to join me for another episode. The Just to You podcast is centered around a network of conversations which are meant to connect us, to inspire us, to find our own confidence, our own voice, and to live our own truth. And who knows, we might even learn a little something new that ultimately allows us to live in the sweet spot that I like to call the Just Do You space of being. Each week, I have the privilege of sitting down for unscripted conversations with friends, family, colleagues, community leaders, and influencers that all share their own personal journeys. I hope that you enjoy our time together as much as I have. We are certainly going to laugh, and yes, we might even cry a little. But in the end, we're going to know that we're not alone during our life's journey. So, are you ready? Great, let's do this. Welcome to the conversation. All right, everyone, welcome to today's episode. I could not be more excited. I know I say that every week because I am excited to sit down with these remarkable people every week, but I am sitting down today with someone that you are just going to absolutely fall in love with like I have. I'm going to jump right in and introduce everyone to Peter Cervantes. Hi, Peter.
Hello, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Honestly, this is
Of course.
super excited to sit with you today and have a chat. Thank you for, inviting me. It's been a crazy month, so I'm very excited to be here with you today.
Good. Our meeting was very serendipitous. I
Yeah.
actually was following your partner and
Yeah.
chatting with him. And you've got to talk to my partner, Peter. And then I talked to you, and I could have talked, I think, for about 10 hours on the phone. There was so much
Yeah.
to talk about and so much to unpack. So we just immediately set an opportunity to sit down and get you on the podcast today. So thank you for joining us. I want to go ahead and read
Absolutely.
something to you. I'm going to introduce you to our
Mhm.
audience, but I'm going to go ahead and read something, and then I have a couple leading questions to ask you.
Yeah,
But
sure.
for our listeners, Peter is based here in San Diego. He is an amazing, extraordinary human being. He is committed to transforming generational trauma into healing tools for the LGBTQ community of color. And he's a writer. He has written a book in the process, and we'll talk about this book and when it's coming out and how you can get it. But it's called The Road Back to Me: Six Sacred Tools for Queer Healing. And when I was searching through Peter's social media and watching this journey, I was really taken by his messaging. So I just want to read this because I think this will set the stage for the conversation. So bear with me. For the past 5 years, Peter has learned that writing isn't just a creative outlet, it's how he turns pain into purpose. As a first generation Mexican American raised by a father that was shaped by this machismo, Peter grew up believing that emotions were weakness and honesty was dangerous. Acting and painting gave him brief escapes, but writing became the shovel that let him dig deep, unearthing his own story and turning it into something that could give light to the way of others. His mental health journey no longer belongs to Peter alone. It's offering to his people, mi gente, as he said, and to those still fighting their battles quietly. Every word that Peter writes is for the sensitive kids who think they're too much, the adults weighed down by generational trauma they can't name, and the families repeating cycles they don't yet know how to break. This is more
Wow.
than storytelling. This is cultural healing. It's dismantling patterns that have held us back for generations. This is proof that pain doesn't have to be permanent and that our stories can evolve beyond where our parents' stories ended. If Peter's words help even one person realize they were never broken, just in the process of healing, then every vulnerable moment Peter shares has been worth it. So that, my friends, is Peter Cervantes.
Oh my God. The way you just put that together. I just
But
got a
that's
little
you.
emotional. No, yeah, I just got a little emotional because I feel like these are things that I've definitely written and put out there. And I am very grateful to be where I am now, but to hear it back,
This is why
you
I
know,
this is but this is why I do this, Peter. It's
yeah,
fascinating. The Just Do You podcast is a conversation about what it
yeah,
means to be authentic. And
yeah,
yet it's making me emotional. We live
yeah.
our lives never hearing, really
No,
truly hearing how we show up for people. And so
yeah.
when I read that, and I wordsmithed it a little bit, to be honest, but when I heard that and I read that, I thought, wow, this is really powerful because it's
Yeah,
Peter's journey to being authentic.
yeah.
And we don't call out ages here on the Just You podcast, even though that's very authentic. I'll let you be the one that breaks that news. But to be an adult And to
Yeah.
be in a position where you're now reaching out to help others see that the generational trauma that they've experienced does not define them. I've always said we are not our circumstances. Our
No.
circumstances don't define us. They certainly shape us, and they certainly have
Yeah.
a way of creating maybe an assumed pathway. But I want to talk a little bit about the book for sure, but I want to go
Yeah.
back just a little bit since you brought it up in that intro.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about Peter, the young Peter. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Talk to us a little bit about that family
Yeah.
dynamic with your dad and give us a little insight into the young Peter. We'll go from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was born and raised in Long Beach, so not too far. And like you stated, I am child of first immigrant parents, I guess you would say. So it's first generation Mexican American. And the first years of my life were great. I had great memories with my father and living at home. But then as soon as I started to when you're a little kid and then you start to come into your own, I was into shiny things. I was into pretty things. From what I have nice memories, but at the same time, they got very dark very quickly. My dad was a mechanic. They were immigrant from Tijuana. They had come to Long Beach and he was working as a mechanic. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My brother's 10 years older than I am. So by that time I was 6, 7, he was already working in the shop with my dad, taking on the family business. And I started to come out as a different and a little
Mhm.
bit more creative, I guess you would say, when it came to expressing myself. And those are
Shiny
the
cars,
things.
shiny cars were not the shiny objects you were.
No.
Yeah.
And so I would find myself in my mother's closet. And my mother, I do have to say, I love her to death. And her and I have had a relationship that's been a little bit up and down, but now we're great. But she was growing up, she was hyper feminine. So I remember watching like the novellas and seeing her, and she would wake up at 6 a.m., curl her hair, do
Mm.
her makeup
Mhm.
and pantyhose every day, high 6-inch heels every day, mini skirts every day, bustiers every day, like super hyper feminine. So I grew up seeing hyper feminine and then
Mhm.
hyper machismo.
Mm.
And
Wow.
growing up in that environment and figuring out who you are and trying to realize what am I, what's going on. And then I remember my earliest memory of abuse was when I was like 6 or 7. My dad beat me raw. And it was because I was wearing my mom's shoes around the house
Mm.
and calling me names that I didn't even understand what they meant as a young child, calling me maricón, just cussing me out. You don't understand these words when you're little. You can't even process them. Things like that started happening more and more. My father had his own business, was very successful, but then he started running around in bad circles and doing things he shouldn't have done, drinking a lot of, and then got into drugs. And things took a turn. And so when my grandfather died, which I write about in my book, he was my sacred space. He was this person in my life at that time that saw my creativeness and my being different as okay. He never questioned it. He never told me to tone it down. He never told me to be different. We would go to TJ pretty much every weekend from Long Beach, and my parents would drop me off at his house and they would go do their thing. And yeah, and he was a carpenter. He had his own wood shop, and that's where I found safety because he never questioned anything. He let me be me fully. Whether I was being a little feminine or a little whatever
Mhm.
it was, he never questioned it. He poured love into me. So when I was about 9, he passed away and my whole life shifted. As Mexicans, we're not taught how to process loss or death or anything like that. It's one of those things that my family, when that happened, I remember the day that it happened.
Mm.
And I write about all this, but I wasn't allowed to go to his funeral and I wasn't allowed to see him or say goodbye. So, what happens when you have someone so pivotal in your life that accepts you and then they're gone? And so, after that, I felt like I had to grow up pretty quickly.
Mm.
The walls started to come up. The abuse got worse at home, whether it was verbal, physical, the drug use and the alcoholism on my father's end got worse. And so It's these things that I was very angry about for a very long
Hmm.
time. But even now, looking back, I don't regret any of it. And I'm glad that I went through those things because
Hmm.
they have shaped me into the person that I am. And that took a lot of work, right? And that's a lot of the reason why I wrote what I wrote, and I'm excited to share it. But yeah, once you start to make peace with things, then we'll talk more about that because I feel
Hmm.
like it's very important for people to understand that we are, I like to call it, we are products of our environment, right?
Hmm.
So we grow up not knowing anything less. Our families come from, whether they come from Mexico, China, it doesn't really matter what your background is, but they come to the US with these religious beliefs, with these already set beliefs of how things should be, into a place where maybe it's not so strict or maybe not so aligned with their beliefs. And so they try to mold you, and you are molded, and so
Hmm.
you become a product of your environment. And it's really weird because I remember going to school and the kids there had a whole different life at home from
Yeah.
mine. And it's one of those things where as a kid, you look at things and you observe them and you're trying to make sense of things, but nothing makes sense.
Question.
Yeah.
When that first moment that your dad started to make the comments when he found you in your mom's
Mhm.
shoes, I think that's a core memory, right? That's a pivotal
Yeah.
moment in your life.
Hmm.
Granted, you don't necessarily have the words to describe it, but how did that make you feel? Do you remember? Was there fear? Was there shame? Obviously, we're too young to really know what those mean, but do you recall now looking back what that might have been?
Fear and confusion for sure. More confusion than anything because you're like, why is the one person that's supposed to be protecting me now beating me if I haven't done anything wrong?
And potentially,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So if you're wearing something, or I would wear my mom's clothes or whatever the
Hmm.
case might be, it becomes confusion because for me, I'm playing dress up. I was a little kid. I was just trying to be cute. You're not looking at these things as I'm trying to be a woman, or it's not sexualized at all because you're
Right.
so young. When someone comes at you that way, it does create a lot of confusion. I think the confusion was the biggest part of it, and the
Hmm.
fear, obviously, of, oh, now I need to watch myself
Hmm.
because we don't
Hmm.
know what the reaction's going to be. And I remember as a kid, I had longer hair, and after that kept happening, I remember even now, which is weird because my whole life I had short hair. I would never grow it out because there was something in my subconscious that was just so traumatized
Hmm.
by the abuse that was caused when I had long hair.
Hmm.
It was an occurrence where, and again, a lot of these things happened, and I always tell people seek professional help because that is going to be the basis of your
Hmm.
healing. What I share is the tools that I used outside of therapy to help
Right.
me process and make sense of things. So through journaling, EMDR, which I talk about in
Hmm.
my book, I didn't remember a lot of those memories or
Hmm.
core memories that stuck in my subconscious.
Sure.
So I
Sure.
remember going through EMDR and I'm sitting there going, why do I feel like I'm getting yanked by my hair? And it was
Right.
a memory that came back almost at my 40s, where I'm sitting there going, what's going on right now? This is confusion again because those memories come back from that abuse. And then I remembered it again and I felt it again. And I went through
Mhm.
the whole process again
Yeah.
of getting my ass beat in a way and my dad dragging me through the whole house by my hair.
Yeah.
And that was such a pivotal moment that I had just buried under the rug so
Sure.
fully that I
Sure.
didn't remember it for years.
Sure.
And so when I'm in therapy and I'm going through all the processes, I'm like, oh my God. And
Hmm.
so it's even stuff like that. I was like, oh my God, no wonder I didn't do that for so long. And why I
Hmm.
was so anti, even seeing guys with long hair would give me like this
Yes.
weird feeling, and I didn't
Hmm.
understand it. So it's like these
Hmm.
little things that
Hmm.
happen. But once you start making sense of things, and for me, my healing became my job, and I wanted to know why.
Yeah.
I went in very curious, and my biggest question with everything that started from my healing journey to where I am now, and what has led me here was me asking why.
And I think, Peter, part of the challenge is that, and I've said this multiple times on podcast episodes, is there's two things. Our parents are not ever educated and taught how to raise children. They're just not.
Especially not
They're
gay ones.
especially not gay ones or ones
Yeah.
that, especially not
Yeah.
gay ones, but
Yeah.
in general, parents are
Yeah.
not taught how to raise their
No.
kids. They're doing it based on their own upbringing or what they see on TV or what they've read in a book. I think what's so difficult is I believe in my world that every single person in this world has had an experience when they were young, that 3, 4, 5, 6 year old self, where someone said something or they did something and they were made to feel embarrassed about it, that had that same experience that you had when your dad caught you in those shoes. It could
Hmm.
be anything.
Yeah.
What happens though, which I find so fascinating and frustrating at the same time, is that there is no conversation anywhere in school curriculum that allows that to be discussed then. We have to pack it in, internalize it, bury it, and then, like you said, live through this subconscious core memory that's driving us. And then we get to our 40s and 50s, and we then have to unpack it all.
Oh
And
my God.
we have to unpack it
Yeah.
all. And thank goodness for our therapists and our coaches and our EMDR peeps and all the modalities, right?
Mhm.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
I, like you, had a very different experience, though, that was around that same age with that same thing. And when I started therapy for my divorce 4 years or 3 years ago, it came up again and I hadn't
Yeah.
even thought about it. And
No.
so, what's so powerful about the journey that you're going through and the book that you're writing, and we're going to obviously make it accessible and how people can get this book because I think everyone's going to need to read it, is we need to get to a place in our lives where we can talk about it freely, we can talk about it openly, and we can have it as a conversation that allows it to pop up to the surface, get discussed, and then release it. Right? Yeah.
100%. A big concept within my book and me even going into wanting to write this is because I remember at 37, this was about 5 years ago, I was getting really sick. I was having a lot of heart palpitations. I ended up at the doctor's a few times, urgent care, getting thrown into cold
Hmm.
showers, panic attacks, anxiety attacks. Never had these in my life. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden, I would wake up in the morning and not be able to breathe
Hmm.
and not be able to function. I felt like my heart was going to explode. And I'm
Hmm.
sitting there going, I think I'm healthy for the most part. And I don't understand why this is happening at this age. My mom's brother, my uncle, had a stroke when he was in his 40s. And so I think that kind of just shot something in my brain that was
Hmm.
like, you need to figure this out. And that for me really shook me. And at that point, I was taking pills to go to sleep, pills to wake up, and pills to function. I went to my doctor. They wanted me on Prozac. And I said, absolutely not. This is not something I'm going to do because I used to work in an HIV specialty pharmacy when I was younger. And I just knew the side effects and how hard it is to get off of medication like that. So I looked for a gay therapist, which I highly recommend if you're a gay person. Find someone that's going to listen to you and not judge your lifestyle. And that was my biggest thing. I was living in Utah at that time, and I just needed to find someone that was going to hear me and help me and not judge me. And that can be very tricky, especially with therapists and people that
Hmm.
you're looking for help. So I took my time and I looked, and I remember going into therapy and saying, if you think I need to be on pills, I will shove them down
Hmm.
my throat. But
Hmm.
if you don't think so, then help. I don't know what's happening and I'm losing my mind. And that was the first time I heard the term generational trauma, and I didn't understand what that meant. I was like, what
Hmm.
are you talking about? What does PTSD from generational trauma
Hmm.
mean? What is that? What does that have to do with me? And at that time, I did not get it. And I remember my therapist explaining to me, and he was amazing, and he literally saved my life. He starts explaining that things are brought in from our grandparents and our great grandparents that are taught to them, and our parents are just doing the best they can with what they know how
Hmm.
to do. And so, therefore, these things get brought through culturally through your
Mhm.
family. And especially if you're different, they don't know how to handle it or how to raise it or how to
Mhm.
talk to it, whether you're gay, straight, but it doesn't matter. It's just
Mhm.
if you're different, they don't understand the complexities. And
Mhm.
so they tend to shut it down instead of trying to work with it. And at that time, I was like, okay. And then I remember him saying, we're going to go into EMDR. And I feel like that's going to help process a lot of that trauma. But I remember after that first sitting, my first appointment, I went back home and I consider myself a very nosy person. I want to know why everything is happening.
Mhm.
And so I started doing my own research and I started to go on, obviously we go on Google, we do all the things, and I started looking for generational trauma and what that meant. And this was 5 years ago. So COVID had just hit, and I feel like maybe that's what happened. COVID hit, the world stopped, and we all had to deal with our shit.
A
So
100%.
I,
I've
I
said that
have,
all along, all along.
yes. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I don't understand why I'm dying. And I don't blame it on COVID. Thank God COVID happened because it allowed us to shut up. It allowed us to slow
Mhm.
down and sit down and really figure out what's going on.
With
Um,
ourselves. With
with
ourselves, by
ourselves,
the
yeah.
way, right?
Oh,
With ourselves.
100%. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
100%. So I started looking into this term generational trauma, and it was really intriguing because I was trying to find literature from my perspective or from my voice that would help me feel seen and or heard through what I was going through. And everything I found was from a straight white man's perspective,
Mhm.
straight white woman's perspective that were doctors that don't understand generational trauma can hit them a little bit, but not as intensely as it does the Black community, the Asian community, the Mexican community, and it goes on and on. It was something that really just got my attention. And I'm sitting there going, this doesn't make sense. You're not going to tell me what I'm feeling if you don't know what I'm going through. And I just started picking up every single book I could find at that point, all the mental health books that were out at the time, spiritual books. Religious
Mhm.
books. I really started doing my own research and trying to make sense of these words. Even now, I feel like these words get thrown around on
Mhm.
socials and podcasts, but no one's telling you what it means. No one's
Mhm.
really digging into, here's an example of what this means. That was something that really captivated me. And I remember sitting in my therapist's office, and this was over 5 years ago, and he's sitting there and he's going, you should write a book. Your story is very intriguing and you have gone through a lot, but maybe it'll help someone. And I remember looking at him straight in the eyes and saying, screw you, I'm never going to do that.
Mhm.
You're crazy. Thank you, but no. And that was just something that I remember. And it's funny because we're here now. The book is done. It's getting published, thank God. And yeah, it's crazy how things work once you align yourself a little bit more and
Mhm.
and you're doing things with purpose. So my
Yeah.
whole purpose is to bring awareness to this thing that is generational trauma and the effects that it has on the gay community, especially,
Mhm.
right? So growing up the way that I did, it started to create a tumbleweed of effect. Later
Mhm.
on, progressed into worse things. We've all had some hard childhoods. I'm not saying mine is any better than anyone else's. That's not the point. But yeah, I did have a lot of trauma and abuse at home, which then later led me to go down the path of self-hatred and self-harm
Mhm.
because I didn't understand if this is the place I'm supposed to be protected and safe and I'm getting the life beat out of me, that means that I'm not worthy or
Right.
loved enough to protect. So then I left home at 17, 18. So at that point, I was still a kid, not a grown-up by any means, and or mature enough to function in
Mhm.
society. And I thought I was, and I ran away as soon as I could from Long Beach. I packed up my car. I went straight into pharmacy tech school right after high school, which was a vocational program. I wanted to go to beauty school. My mom said no, because boys don't do that. Again, little pieces
Mhm.
of that trauma, right, coming through and everything I wanted to do. Even as a kid, I was in arts. I got accepted to the Art Institute after high school. My
Okay.
parents said, no, that is not a career. Around 10, I wasn't acting all through school. Around 10, I had an agent wanting to sign me as a kid actor. My parents said no, because we don't do that. And then even after high school, when you go beauty school, men don't go into that field. So I'll pay for your schooling, but you have to pick one of these vocations. And it was one of those schools that had pharmacy tech, paramedic,
Yeah.
and all those. And so I picked the shortest program that was going to get me through and get it done and get out. That was my
Hmm.
mentality
Hmm.
because I did feel safe anymore and or protected or loved or any of those. It's crazy what trauma like that does and how it shapes your life as a young person.
Ask you a
And I
question,
want, yeah, yeah,
Peter.
go.
Sorry.
Okay, yes, please.
So from that first moment, right,
Yeah,
when your dad found you to then you're now 17, 18,
yeah.
you're just doing what you needed to get out. So that's 13, 14 years. Was that entire time span spent in fear?
Yes and no. So my grandfather died when I was around 9.
Okay.
And then for 4 years after that, it just got very
Hmm.
bad. The abuse was just not me, it was my mom. I'd see
Hmm.
her being strangled by my father, my brother
Hmm.
having to intervene. I was a kid and I saw a lot of
Hmm.
abuse at home and I saw a lot of dark things that I shouldn't have seen as a kid. At around 12, my father went to prison.
Hmm.
And that was a relief.
Hmm.
The demons put away, and it felt that way. But still, then having to have everything and having a house and cars and
Hmm.
things. And then my mom and I ended up just, it was us two. She's a single parent at this point. She was 40 years old, never spoke a word of English. And we went to go straight stay at a great aunt's house on her floor. What does that do to you as a kid, right? You're living in this unsafe environment, and now
Hmm.
you are sleeping on the ground, shopping at Goodwill, and you just feel completely worthless at this point. And so then my mom and I started to have conflicts because I was angry.
Yeah.
I was angry, I was hurt, I was confused more than anything. Yeah, and so her and I started to have a lot of conflict.
Was there a conversation? This may be hard to answer being put on the spot, but was there a conversation though that you were having with yourself amidst all of this trauma that had you see a different path? Because let's face it, that how you survive that, how any child survives that, I can't relate to that, so I don't ever want to make that assumption. But what gets you through? What gets you to get up every morning and move to the next day? What is that?
Honestly, I was just angry. I feel like a lot of people retract and become a
Hmm.
victim of their environment.
Hmm.
And for me, I became this angry person. I wanted to rebel. I wanted to get out. I was so mad that I was just anger. Anger kept me
Hmm.
going. And
Wow.
it's just such a sad thing to think about, right? Because all I really needed at that time was for my mother, my father, my brother, anyone to come to me and ask me if I was okay and if I needed anything. And it was that simple, and that wasn't done. When you're going through this type of environment and you're just trying to get out. So for me,
Hmm.
getting out was the only answer
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't motivated by wanting to be better, it was motivated by anger.
Survival and survival.
And yeah, I went into complete fight or flight at such a young age that I just wanted to get away from everybody
Hmm.
because I didn't feel worth it. You don't feel that love and that acceptance. So then wanting to run away, I thought was going to be like the beginning to a
Hmm.
fresh start. I was wrong because obviously I had a lot of things that happened and I
Hmm.
hadn't processed any of it. In our
Hmm.
family, we don't process
Hmm.
trauma. We don't process situations. I still have aunts and uncles that things happen and
Hmm.
sweep it under the rug. And that's what we do as
Hmm.
a culture, as a
Hmm.
community. We don't process, we don't talk about it. Therapy is laughed at. Mental health is a joke. And we just, women, the more that they endure, the stronger they are. And then
Yeah.
the men, the more you suck it up and the more you don't talk about your feelings, the stronger you are as a man. So, uh, growing up with these constructs, that's what I thought was right.
Yeah. So when you're in pharmacy tech school
Yes.
and right, you're doing this program.
Yes.
Is there a shift at some
No.
point? No.
No,
Okay.
no shift. I did the program. I got out. I worked at a hospital in Long Beach for about 6 months, which was fun. It was funny because it was the hospital I was born at, St.
Oh.
Mary's, and working graveyard shifts, saving up all my money. And I packed up my car after 6 months and moved to San Diego with my aunt and my cousin, and they offered me a room. And so I took it. And I'm over here thinking I'm a grown up now and I'm gonna do better than what I came from. That wasn't what happened.
Mhm.
You don't think about these things, especially when you're a kid, right? Because you're still developing, you're still growing. And a lot of that trauma happened in such early years when
Mhm.
you are developing and growing, that all that time if you're not figuring it out and really talking about it and trying to do something with it, it will affect you fully. And being on my own, it gave me empowerment of some sort of just independence,
Mhm.
but the self-love, self-worth, and all of those things that are very pivotal and very important were completely gone. So then you start making choices based on those feelings. And
Mhm.
I think that's something very important to be talked about because people are like, no, things just happen to me all the time. And we attract what we get because of how we think about ourselves. Yeah, at that time, thinking I was going to get a new start, just because I had all those feelings about myself, I went down a different path. I was very lucky to get a job at an HIV specialty pharmacy in Hillcrest, and I loved my job. My job was it became my identity in a really
Mhm.
weird way because I didn't think I had an identity when I moved. I was in such survival mode, and I didn't know my queerness yet. I knew I was intrigued by it. I had a girlfriend in high school, so
Mhm.
again, trying to live what my parents said I should have, even though
Mhm.
there was many flags along the way as a creative, as an actor, as an artist, saying maybe you're a little bit different.
So you weren't out at this point.
No, no,
Oh, wow. Okay.
no. So I left at 18
Okay.
and I started working at this pharmacy, and it became my safe haven because it was in
Mhm.
the gay community. But I was still very confused. I knew I was intrigued by it, but I couldn't fully step into it. I remember when I got hired, I was still dressing like a straight guy in those days, the baggy pants, the baggy shirts, very confused. And that kind of gave me that safe haven of understanding myself and really getting to a place of self acceptance in my sexuality.
Mhm.
But that didn't mean that I was going to make the right decisions because that
Mhm.
self-love again
Mhm.
and the self-worth part were
Mhm.
very much non-existent.
Did you have short hair then?
Yes, I've had
Okay.
short. I grew my hair out during COVID, and
Okay.
so here we are.
I was
So
gonna,
this
I
is
was
on
gonna,
you.
I was gonna get to that later, not try to make a joke out of it.
No, you're good.
For our listeners who cannot
Yes.
see him, the most gorgeous hair. Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
thank you.
long, beautiful hair, which was
Thank
we
you.
were gonna get to. Okay. In all seriousness, now back to that.
Yes.
I had to say that. Sorry, I've been staring at
No,
your hair
thank
the
you.
whole time.
You're so cute. Appreciate it. So, yeah, working at this pharmacy, I met my best friend. His name was Michael, and I talk about him a lot in the book because, again, after my grandfather died and losing someone that saw me for me, I was very lost and confused. And then I find this person in my 20s that again saw me for me. No judgment, no nothing. It was just pure friendship and such a loving space. He was 30, he was in his 30s, I was 20, and he just embraced me like his little brother. And
Mm,
if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have had the courage to come out when I did because he really helped me understand a lot about the community and about myself and really had those conversations. So at that point, almost 20 years later, you finally have someone that wants to ask you questions about you and is interested and sees you. And so when you have someone like that, it gives you a little bit of that empowerment and that self
mm,
like acceptance where you're like, okay, I think this is my path, right?
mm. Did you finally feel seen and heard at that point? Or did
Yes.
you? Okay.
Yes. And then at 21, sorry,
So,
at 21, Michael passed. And yeah, that was a really rough time. I still get very emotional about it because I lost two very important people. at such a young age that didn't question and just saw me for me. Yeah, he was very special, but I didn't understand his own mental health issues and what he was going through. And I talk about it in my book. So I don't want to give too much away, but
Yeah.
the way that happened was very dramatic. And he took his own life, and I
Mhm.
witnessed the whole thing. It's one of those things that, yes, when I was younger, I didn't get to say goodbye to my grandfather, but now as an adult, this is happening and I didn't want to let go. So it's one of those things where it's just, again, the mind fuck in a way just really
Mhm.
screws with you. And what do you do? I was never taught how to process loss and even talk about it. So I went straight to work. I went straight to work.
Mhm.
They offered me help and I said no, because it's stupid. That's what I was told as a
Mhm.
kid, right?
Mhm.
Do
Right.
therapy. So I declined therapy and I went back to work. And that caused a whole cycle of continuing that tumbleweed of disaster that led after that, that just really took me down a really dark path because not only now am I grieving, I don't feel like I'm worth having people around.
Mhm.
And as a gay man living in Hillcrest in San Diego, a big gay community, I'm 21, it just led me down a path of drugs and alcohol. But even then, around that same time, I also came out to my father and he disowned me. So there was a lot of push coming at me. And I think at that time, there was a lot of why me. I remember having that conversation with my father, and he said, "Don't ever want to speak to you again. You're no longer my son." And that's really, that sucks, right? Because we don't know
Mhm.
how to process any of that yet. Again, even though
Mhm.
he was abusive and even though he was a jerk, he was still my father. And I was trying to make amends and I was trying to have a better relationship with him as an
Mhm.
adult. And
Mhm.
even then, he didn't want it. So that was tough. And then I was outed to my mother, and
Mhm.
I write about all that too. But the acceptance wasn't really there from my
Mhm.
family's point of view.
Mhm.
And I didn't talk to my mom for a couple years. It took later on, my stepdad had to really warm her up to the
Mhm.
fact that I was going to be okay. But yeah, when all this is happening back to back, things just got really dark
Yeah.
after that. And I was only 21. It's that effect of that trauma from family that just impacts your life and your
Mhm.
choices and your decisions that you make as an adult or try to make as an adult. And then the people that come into your life at those points, if you don't know how to really deal with things, it can really knock you down.
I am truly sitting here listening to you with my chin on the floor. Like, I just can't imagine what
Yeah,
that was like for you. And I'm sorry that you had to
it's okay.
experience the loss. And I'm really curious because I want people to read the book because I want them to have that experience and to
Yeah.
learn and to really see the journey that you've been on and how that could potentially help them. I'm with you. I don't want to give too much away. But
Yeah.
what was the turning point for you, Peter? What was the aha moment? What was that had you wake up that morning and say, maybe I'll turn left today instead of turning? What was that? Or was there that moment?
Yes, there was actually. So yeah, a lot of things happen and I share myself fully in my writing. I didn't consider myself a writer for a long time. I don't consider myself for sure. I don't want to step into the place of I know better, so I'm gonna tell you what to do to be better. The whole purpose of my writing and my book is to share my story as authentically and as real as possible, and then share the tools that I use to
Mhm.
get better. I remember that point that was very pivotal that really shook me. It wasn't just having heart palpitations and waking up in the morning not able to breathe and going to the doctors and even them telling me you're at risk of heart attack or a stroke. Something's coming. If we need to figure this out. At that same time, mind you, at that time I was with my partner for 7 years at that point. And I met him in my 30s. And I think for me, meeting him was a lifeline that I didn't
Mhm.
realize was being thrown at me at that time. I was going down a really dark path for 10 years from 21 through when I met him at 31. It was just really dark. And I speak about all of it. And I speak about my diagnosis, my HIV diagnosis as well. And I speak about just a lot of dark moments. So when he came into my life, he was that lifeline that saw me for me and never gave up on me, right? So he stood by me through some dark times as well, me trying to figure this out, and all this is happening. But at that time that I was having all these issues physically, and then realizing through therapy that my trauma was manifesting itself physically, and that my
Mhm.
heart was that physical
Mhm.
thing that was attached to all this trauma and all this
Mhm.
loss and pain and confusion and anger. At that same time, my partner was like, you need to do something about this or I'm done. Because every year I would push buttons, right? Every anniversary, it wasn't just happy anniversary. It was, why are you still here?
Mhm.
It was me pushing buttons trying to get him to leave. And because I didn't feel worth it, right? I didn't
Mhm.
feel worthy of that kind of love for someone
Mhm.
to be with me that long and you get that 7 year itch. But mine was more of like, why are you still here? I'm a
Mhm.
mess. You're so much better, right? So having those two things come up at the same time really knocked me on my ass. And that's what really shook me. And I was sitting there going, oh my God, if I don't fix this, I'm either gonna die or I'm gonna have a stroke and then I'm going to lose the love of my life. It's going to
Mhm.
come, it's going to become real because I've been trying to push it so much that now it's going to manifest itself into reality. And I sat there and I was like, what am I doing?
Mhm.
What am I thinking? This needs to change. And that was the point that led me down a whole different path than I was
Mhm.
ever on before. And I'm very
Mhm.
grateful for that because I needed to hear those words from
Mhm.
someone that important.
There's a quote that I have to compose myself. There's a quote that I have loved for decades, and it's that there are angels in this world whose sole purpose it is to land on our shoulders gently and wake us up so that we don't miss the rest of our lives. And I say to many people in my life who have been that pivotal moment for me,
Yeah.
they didn't land so gently. It was like a Mack truck landing on your shoulder, right? But I really believe that in those people that come into our
Yeah.
life for a season, reason, or a lifetime. And I think
Yeah.
you were at a spot in your life. I very much believe in universe and that there are no accidents, right? And that
No.
that moment in time where you push that button for what you thought would be the last time, and this person looks at you and says, again, really? I'm
Yeah.
here. And it allows you this opportunity, at least for me, to sit back and say, yeah, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I going down this path of self-destruction, of not feeling worthy, of not feeling that I have any value, that no one wants to be
Yeah.
with me? Because you hear around you
Yeah.
that you are. You're so
Yeah.
great. You're so this, you're so that. And yet you don't feel it. And so we all have, if we are willing to allow it to occur, we all have that pivotal aha moment. And so
100%.
I'm why I got emotional, I'm still emotional thinking about it, is there was an option or there was an opportunity
Yeah.
of it not to go that way. And
Yeah.
yet, once again, here is this beautiful soul who has
Yeah.
been through hell and survived it. And what is the greater gift that this person is? Because I believe, Peter, that every single one of us on this earth, and it's a little hard to have this conversation today, especially within light of what's happened in the
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
72
100%.
hours, but we are all put on this earth to be of service to others. We are all here.
100%.
There is no, in my world, other reason. It's not
No.
to obtain wealth. It's not to obtain power. It's not to obtain things. It is literally to be of service to others. And in that last statement, if it's just one person that reads your book and decides to make that different turn, that different choice, that different decision, then you've done and accomplished what you were put on this earth to do. And I will
100%.
shout that until my last breath in this lifetime so people get it. So I'm so grateful that this amazing soul came into your life and said, wake up. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Do what you need to do, and let's get out there and make a difference, not only for you, because I
Yeah.
do believe, Peter, that you say that you're doing this for everyone else, that you do this for other people, and I believe that. But I
Mhm.
also believe in my heart and in my gut, because I've heard a lot of stories over the last two seasons, right? You did it for you first.
Yes. Oh my God, 100%. I feel like healing it's not about others, honestly. It is about you. So there
Mhm.
is that moment where you have to put yourself
Yeah.
first. And growing up in different religions, and I've been through all of them. In every scripture, it says God is within all of us and we are God. I do believe in that. I believe there is a source bigger than ourselves. There is an entity bigger than ourselves. And I believe we are all one. What really shifted for me, not just in that moment of having someone see me for me and really step up for me, was also me realizing that I wasn't stepping up for myself. And so, if God is in all of us and we are God, then why am I talking to myself like I don't matter on a daily basis? So, my journey started with yes, I need to heal this trauma, but at the same time, where do I stand with myself? Because I
Mhm.
didn't for a long time. For a long time, I couldn't look in the mirror and just stand there and say, I love you. And I dare anyone to please try that for at least 5 days. It is the
Mhm.
hardest thing to
Mhm.
do.
Yep.
But once you get to do that little exercise that's so simple, it will change the way you start seeing yourself and the way you
Mhm.
think about yourself. And so for me, the healing was pivotal, but then finding myself through all of that was a journey that I wasn't expecting. It
Mhm.
was a pleasant surprise that came out of all the darkness and all the craziness that has been my life, that I found me authentically. I found my voice, I found my writing. I've always written. I've always been, I love stories. Being an actor, being an artist, I've always loved to tell some sort of story with my creative. And I lost that for a very long time.
Mhm.
So once I found myself and my authentic being, I realized that I was a creative, right? It came back out. Everything just came back out and I embraced it all. And the journey of healing and processing trauma, it's not just so singular. It becomes this beautiful rainbow and array of getting to embrace all the parts of you. I embrace
Mhm.
my trauma, I embrace the loss, but I'm also embracing my authenticity, my creativity, my love for others. Like I said earlier, I'm not a guru, I'm not anything. I'm just a regular guy, gay guy that went through some really dark shit. And I'm here to share that because I want to, like you said, if I help one person through this whole journey and through my book, then my job is done. It's not
Mhm.
about me anymore. It was about me for a minute because I needed to get to a place of self-reliance, self-acceptance, self-realization where I sat there and I was like, I like me today. And what moves me now every day and why I wake up every day, it's not a thing or a place or a job. It's me.
Mhm.
I wake up for me because I
Mhm.
love me. And I
Mhm.
can authentically say that from the bottom of my heart because I'm finally there. So that's what motivates me to do the work that I'm doing. It motivates me to keep pushing and going and do more because
Mhm.
I'm so good with me that I want others to be good with them. And if I
Mhm.
can help bridge that little gap of if I can do it, you can do it too. And if I can give you anything, I just want to give you the hope that you can get to a place of just loving yourself so much that you become your greatest love. And I know I
Mhm.
posted something yesterday that really
Mhm.
got your attention with that, but I needed to hear that. I still need to hear that. I'm not sitting here every day going, oh, my life is amazing. I'm human. I'm having a human experience and things happen. But in the process of things happening, I really try to step back and put things into perspective. And I go, does today really matter? Or does this
Yeah.
situation really make a difference in my bigger picture. Because having this book come to life was a goal of me just finishing off this year.
Mhm.
And so for it to now be picked up by a publishing company, which W Brand Publishing has been nothing but kind and loving, and oh my God, like I was not expecting that this year. And for it to be in the editing process right now and hopefully out by spring, I'm sitting here going, this isn't about me anymore. This is about the purpose that's
Right.
bigger than myself. And something has moved me, which I believe is God, whatever you want to call it, source, that has led me to get to this place where this is for, I'm just a messenger. I'm just going to be the vehicle that's going to carry this message. Our community doesn't have anything like this. We don't have any sort of publication from a queer voice of color to help our community process this sort of trauma, process disownment, process addiction, process HIV diagnosis. I work with a lot of gay men even now, whether they're younger or older, because I'm in that middle category where I can talk to older generations, and I've seen the effects of AIDS and that epidemic and what it did, but I also see the effects of HIV now with the younger generation, and I can speak to both, but there's still a lot of shame and stigma behind it.
Hmm.
And I want to remove that because
Hmm.
it is not who we are. It is
Hmm.
something that has happened to us and we can take
Hmm.
care of it. But a lot of people tend to take those narratives and make it their reality and make it their identity, I meant to say. So yeah, it's crazy what happens once you figure out some stuff and really just get
Yeah.
down to the nitty-gritty part of who you are, and then you start to love that part. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be perfection does not exist, first of all.
And also, we're on a journey for our lifetime.
Yes,
Right? It is not
100%.
over. And I have
Yeah.
something that I have to say because in the midst of my tears right now, because I'm just so moved by you. I heard a friend of mine who's a healer, very known, and we were chatting. And unfortunately, he didn't say this on the episode, but he said a guru is simply a human being with a self-given title.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to remember is that we
Yeah.
all have the ability within us to
Yeah.
find the space. And it's okay to look for the mentor, the practitioner,
Oh,
the
100%.
therapist, the coach. I have a posse of people in my life that if I didn't have them, Peter, I would be the biggest mess.
Yeah.
I need my people. And I'm starting in on a new coaching practice with someone in 2 weeks, and I'm so excited. I can't wait because it's going to open up a whole different
Yeah.
conversation for me in an area that I have hidden out from for years. So
Yeah.
I loved when my friend said that, though, when he said a guru is nothing but a human being with a self-given
Yeah.
title. We all have this within us to find this space. What I think is important with your story and with your book and with your sharing and with your willingness to be vulnerable and to put it out there is that there's going to be somebody, whether they're 20 years old or whether they're 60 years old, who's
Yeah.
going to read this book and they're going to go, oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay, and see themselves. Doesn't matter what side of the fence they're on, doesn't matter what color they are, it doesn't matter.
No.
They're going to read it and they're going to find themselves in this story. And whatever moment that is, that they can go, this needs to change. There is
Yeah.
hope, there is opportunity, there's possibility here. I fully believe that there is an opportunity for all of us to shift the conversation that we have about ourselves.
100%.
And I thank you because I sit back and I think I've been doing this podcast now for 2 seasons, and there are weeks where it's so hard to find guests because
Yeah.
people's schedules change and they think they want to be
Yeah.
on and then they can't. And I've had people say, no, I don't want to be on that silly podcast. And then they come back to me 6 months later and like, is there still a spot? And I go, sure. But there are thousands and thousands of stories out there that
Yeah.
resonate with people. And it's what gets me going. I probably wouldn't have met you
Yeah.
necessarily the way that I did if it hadn't been for social media. And so
Yeah.
I sometimes curse it. I sometimes at 4 in the morning after the dog's woken me up and I'm flipping through Instagram, I tend to go a little down the hole, if you will. But it's in doing so that you get to see that we're all out there right now navigating this journey called life. And in a moment where we are still, I'm speaking from my own experience, a little terrified, a little
Oh yeah.
fearful, and a little
Oh,
shameful.
100%. Yeah.
We need to connect with people like you. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful
Thank you.
to have had an opportunity to
I
spend
am
time
I.
with you and to really hear your story and put it out there.
Yeah, and as am I. I feel like this I needed to talk about this with someone like this. It's nice to have these conversations again. I've done a lot of writing the
Mhm.
last 5 years. I've written 3 books, which is crazy because I never thought of myself as an author or a writer even. So there was a lot of that saboteur
Sure.
coming through, but I've embraced it. And it is about embracing, like you said, it's just a title that we give power to, and I highly believe that.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not about, like I said earlier, it's not about me anymore. I want to create a community where we can talk about these things, right? We should be able to come together and have these conversations and see each other and be like, hey, I see you. You're going to be okay. Don't do something crazy because
Hmm.
I've been there.
Hmm.
I've been there myself many times, and I didn't have anyone to turn to when things got really dark. If I would have read the book that I wrote when I was going through my own process of things, I think I would have gotten here sooner. But again, I'm grateful for the journey that I went on because it taught me a lot. I've read a lot. I did a lot of research, which informed me a lot. My background in pharmaceuticals and working within the HIV community, also, I bring all that with me. I don't leave anything behind. And it's allowed me to really embrace this new journey and this new path of, okay, I can do this. I'm not afraid anymore because the fear is gone.
Yeah.
And fear is something that we give power to on our own minds. People are like, well, I can't do that. I can't do what you did. You can do anything you want. You just
Hmm.
have to choose to want to do it and not have fear because fear is not real. 90% of our thoughts every day are not real. They're
Yeah.
just old thoughts coming through again. And it's just that repetitiveness. But if we rewrite those and
Hmm.
we give ourselves a little bit more grace and we give ourselves a little bit more love, it's crazy the things that you can do,
Oh,
honestly. And
a
and
hundred
and for
percent.
the people that you can help, that's
Yeah.
the crazy
So you'll laugh. So I admit this occasionally, but I'm a huge Housewives fan. I can't help it. It's my
part.
escape.
It's a
And
guilty pleasure.
I'm gonna give props out to my girl Heather Dubrow, but she said on her podcast that I listened to, and she explained fear as false expectations
Mhm.
appearing real. And I had
Yeah.
never heard that before. Other people had said they'd heard it. And I remember driving down the street. I was heading down to Hillcrest to go meet some friends for dinner. And I heard her say that. And I almost had to stop the car because I just burst out into tears because I thought, oh my gosh, and I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of work on myself, been trained to
Yeah.
lead programs and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, my self-imposed guru-ness. But when I heard that, I went, wow, that's
Yeah.
really powerful. So that
Yeah.
fear is what drives us. So I could talk to you for days, but I have two last
Yes.
questions.
Yes.
Three. First question is I hope you will come back. You are welcome anytime
Anytime.
to come back and
Anytime.
chat. You're a
Yes.
delight. I adore
Thank
you.
you.
You have a new friend. I can't wait to get together for coffee with
Thank
you
you.
and chat. Second to last question, what's next for you?
Trying to figure out this whole new journey, right? So this is a whole new path that I'm on. I thank God I've gotten people that I've met that are now in my life that are helping me out.
Mhm.
David Wichman, which we talked about before we
Mhm.
came on. He's an author as well with W Brand Publishing, and he's been super pivotal in this process, and I'm super grateful for him. W Brand itself has been super encouraging in this journey of signing me, which happened last week. Social media went
Congratulations.
up 2 weeks ago. Thank you. And
Go.
growing the social media presence right now is my job. It's really putting myself out there and letting people know that I'm here and what I've created and what I've done and the message. And so from now until the spring, that is my job, is to put out as much content. I have a Substack, Instagram. I just finished a website. I need to do LinkedIn. I have to do all the things that I
Mhm.
need to do to be able to put myself in that full category. But yeah, it's just doing the work that I need to do to get the visibility and the word so
Mhm.
that when the book does launch in the spring, people have it and people can read it. And that's my whole thing. I just need to get it out there and to as many hands as I can in our community, at least.
Mhm.
I'm going to try to see if I can work with our LGBTQ plus
Mhm.
community here in San
Mhm.
Diego and try to get myself seen in the community and hopefully do more speaking, more podcasts, more interviews. I don't know. I just want to do as much as I can with this
Uh,
because I'm very proud of it.
yeah.
And like I said, I have two others that are coming after that. So I'm also rewriting those and just putting myself fully into that, really.
We're going to make sure I've got some ideas for
Yeah.
you. So I'm going to
Thank you.
connect you with a few people here in San
Thank
Diego.
you.
I will also, like I
I would
said, make
appreciate it.
all of your social media accessible
Thank
on
you.
our platform, and we're going to push this out and get it to as many people as we can. My last question, and I ask this of every guest, is if you could go back to that young Peter, what would you tell him about his life today?
Wow, that's a good question. I think I would tell him, don't worry, because you will come out of this authentically you.
And a beautiful human being.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here today, Peter. Really,
Thank you
you've
for having me. Thank you.
changed a lot for me today as I start to cry. I'm known as the podcast crier, so I got to the very end, but it's super emotional and very powerful, and
Thank
I
you.
can't thank you enough. And you're just
Thank
delightful.
you.
And we will also hear from your partner, who's going to be a guest on an
Yes.
upcoming episode. So I can't wait
Yes,
to
yes,
share his
yes, you
story as
will.
well. Be well, my friend, and we'll talk soon. Okay,
Thank you. Bye.
bye. All right, everyone. Thank you again for joining us on today's episode. I hope our conversation resonated with you like it did me, and I cannot wait to sit down with you all again next week. Remember to subscribe to the Just Do You podcast on your favorite platform so you can make sure not to miss a new episode, which drop every Thursday. If you like what you hear, you can easily share the podcast and episode directly with your friends. And if you would, rate us and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. You can also follow us on Instagram at Just Do You Pod. As you go out into the world today, remember to just do you. All right, talk next week.